But the interesting thing about the two of you being on this show and Jason's name being Jason's name, Rockman, um, is that Tommy, your movie is the first one in the franchise where Jason's name takes precedence over Friday the 13th part, whatever. Like Jason Lives is the first one. So
I didn't know.
Tommy, you made Jason live, and Adam, you made him go to hell. But either way, Jason was in the name. So that's really interesting that up until that point, it was all Friday the 13th. But have you guys seen each other's movies, and what do you think of them?
Welcome back to the Rockman Power Hour, a podcast where we talk to the most interesting people in the world of pop culture and everything in between. I'm joined by my co-host, Bowie. All right, Bowie doesn't have anything to say. But I do have something to tell you. This week on the show, we are celebrating the month of October, which is, of course, the month of spooky films, candy, and all that other fun stuff. It's Halloween month. And this week on the show, we are joined by two directors from the Friday the 13th franchise, Tommy Mcloughlin and Adam Marcus. We had an incredible chat with these two gentlemen about their participation in the incredible Friday the 13th universe. Also, we talked about current movies. We talked about all kinds of things. One of my favorite podcasts that we've done so far doing this show. So we don't want to bog you down with the long intro. We want to get right to the meat and potatoes of this episode. But I must say, before we go too far, thanks to our friends at Heartbeat Hot Sauce, the heartbeat of the Rockman Power Hour. And if you use our promo code Rockman20, you'll get 20% off your entire order. Don't lick that. It'll burn right through it'll burn right through your little doggy anus. But I will tell you, and the reason why I'm telling you that, well, actually, it's not that bad, Bowie. It's medium. You can try some. You want to try some hot sauce? No? All right. Also, a big thanks to our friends at Studio House Designs and Audio Technica Canada for keeping us sounding incredible. Let's go right to it. Our interview with Tommy Mcloughlin and Adam Marcus from the Friday the 13th universe. What's going on, and welcome back to the Rockman Power Hour. This week on the show, we're really, really excited because we've managed to pull off something really, really cool that I never thought we'd be able to do. But thanks to you, Ryan, and your tenacity and your organization.
I would think of it as my obsessive compulsion to be nice enough to people that they're nice enough to talk to you a few years later.
Well, listen, either way, it's obviously speak to your glowing personality and how kind you are. And we are Canadians. So it sometimes when we ask Americans things very nicely, they're usually more than happy to oblige. But we've got Adam Marcus and Tommy Mcloughlin. Now, did I say that right, Tommy?
Yes, sir, you did.
Good. So both of you gentlemen are part of a very, very important franchise in the world, the Jason franchise, the Friday the 13th franchise. I'm a big fan. Ryan's a massive fan as well. When this thing came out a few years back, this was like every fan had to get this because it has. They say it has everything, and it does. It has almost everything. But you guys were a very, very important part of this this folklore. You added really, really cool parts to this. So to have both of you on in the month of October, because by the time we air this, it will be October. It's perfect timing to talk to both of you about what it was like to work in that universe. Because let's face it, there's a handful of horror franchises that really, really matter. And of course, Friday the 13th is one of them. Hellraiser is one of them. Child's Play is one of them. But the idea that you guys got to steer the boat and decided where Jason was going in one way or another must have been really, really cool. And
they didn't steer a boat. That was Takes Manhattan, which 90% of it was on a fucking boat.
I don't mean it's a figure of speech, Ryan. What I'm saying is that you were able to take the reins and tell a story.
Jason Takes the Reins is part 14.
All right, fuck off. Okay, I did my thing, Ryan. You go ahead.
Guys, we talked a few years ago during the pandemic when the world was going almost as crazy as someone walking around in the woods wielding an axe. Now it's crazy for different reasons, but we talked during the pandemic. My hair was longer. Tommy is still committed to his Iron Maiden bass player haircut. And,
Damn Skippy.
I got kicked out of 7 high school, so I ain't giving this thing up anytime soon.
And Adam, I've been telling people for years how you are like a Kevin Smith level storyteller. Like it is incredible. Your story's incredible. Just a whiz kid who just I rewatched Jason Goes to Hell, and considering how young you were when you directed that movie, that is absolutely insane. But the interesting thing about the two of you being on this show and Jason's name being Jason's name, Rockman, is that Tommy, your movie is the first one in the franchise where Jason's name takes precedence over Friday the 13th part, whatever. Like Jason Lives is the first one. So
I didn't know.
Tommy, you made Jason live, and Adam, you made him go to hell. But either way, Jason was in the name. So that's really interesting that up until that point, it was all Friday the 13th. But just in order, I would like to say, have you guys seen each other's movies, and what do you think of them?
Well, I can tell you that the only reason I'm jumping in is because the very first time Tommy and I we had met a couple times at conventions long ago, but we really became friends at Chiller a few years back. And the very first time I got to sit down with Tommy, I let him know right off the bat, hey man, listen, your film is by far my favorite of the franchise. And for me, I only think my movie exists because his movie was created. And I am a fan of all of Tommy's work, like a huge fan. But I have to tell you, like, that movie for me was where I feel the adult franchise began. And so I just have so much love for Tommy and for Jason Lives. And that is, by the way, it has always been my favorite. That's my favorite. Part 2 is my second, and then mine I bring in third. So
oh, nice.
I'm not that guy that loves my movie first. Like, I don't do that. I really do honor what Tommy created.
I'm going to put a few more zeros on this check that I'm sending you.
Would you please?
Are you for you, Tommy? Are you a fan of Jason Goes to Hell?
Yes, purely for no other reason than I wanted to do something different. And the same thing to Adam. He took this thing on and he really did something different.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
That, like anything else, I hate when things kind of get trapped, with a particular franchise where you have to have all these key elements, which is fine if you can find a way to twist it somehow. So it's not to me about, okay, well, we've sent him to outer space. Now we got to send him to Mars, or we got to send him to Kansas, or anything like that.
Yeah.
Going to hell is a particularly great thing. And it's sort of, I think Adam's trapped the whole franchise now in going to hell. I don't know what's going on after 10 years of this waiting for another Friday, and the fans are going nuts, but somehow he's paying for penance here. But yeah, I'm dying to see Adam's documentary that he did on the whole experience, because I think we're going to get a lot of insights into the brilliance of this man. I mean, as a director, as an actor's director, all these things that I went, man, we have a lot in common in terms of what we love about, making movies. So yeah, we definitely became like, kindred spirits almost instantly, and kind of could finish each other's sentences, when we were talking about stuff. So yeah, it was very exciting when we actually hooked up.
Yeah, I love that. And what's really cool is that these franchises that will have numerous movies, fans just want to be there and they want to experience it. And even if, something doesn't financially do as well as some of the other ones, the fans are in it. And that. I mean, you guys meet fans all the time. I just recently picked up all the Leprechaun movies. And listen, let's face it, man, by the time, the Leprechaun's in the hood or whatever it is, it gets pretty crazy, but you're along for the ride. It's the same thing with all the Child's Play movies and the Chucky, the Chucky franchise. Like, you just want to be there and experience it. And I I for one have always loved, you know, all the chances that Friday the 13th took and the different turns it took. You know, I loved when Jason met Freddy. I thought that was crazy. You know, it's the kind of thing, it's like when Alien meets Predator. It's like that kind of stuff that happens where you're like, this doesn't really need to happen, but fans wanted it to happen. And I think what's great is that when you have places like, you know, like Scream and Shout Factory and Arrow Video and all these boutique labels that pay so much attention to this stuff, you know, they become like the criterion of the B movie, if you will. It's so important to collectors and, you know, to people like myself, and I imagine for you guys too, because it preserves the legacy of cinema as well. And it's such important work that these guys are doing. And I think right now, you know, I talk about physical a lot because I do love physical media. And I think we're living in a golden age of physical media if you are a fan of physical media, because there's so much stuff that's just getting the red carpet treatment. And what's great is all these, you know, the special features and the interviews. And this is the kind of stuff that horror fans they're clamoring for, you know? So when we get a chance to have both of you guys on the podcast, you know, there's people that are going to be like, man, it's awesome to hear, you know, what Tommy thought of Adam's movie and vice versa. And because when are you ever going to hear this besides maybe on a panel at a Comic-Con?
Right.
May I just say something kind of unique? And Adam, you were so generous a few years ago with your time. And like I said, Kevin Smith level, it's a storyteller. Adam told me something incredible because we all know, everyone who saw Friday the 13th part, well, you know, Jason Goes to Hell, there's a little after credit scene way before the Marvel universe usually, you know, would throw in a little thing at the end. You kind of see a mask and you see a familiar glove pulling the mask into the sand. Now, Freddy versus Jason became a thing, but at that point, Adam, that had no plans of Freddy versus Jason whatsoever. That was you, 100%.
That was me. That's 100% me. That was not, no. That was not a dictate from the studio. That was none of that. It was simply that. I mean, anyone who knows Jason Goes to Hell, I littered the movie with homages to all the films that made me want to be a director. So there were, you know, I kept dropping these little hints throughout, sort of breadcrumbs, and even conceptually the idea of body hopping. You know, a lot of people said The Hidden, which by the way is an incredible movie. I mean, I think Jack's a great filmmaker, and I think The Hidden's beautiful. I had not seen The Hidden when I made Jason Goes to Hell. I just hadn't seen the movie. Yeah. So trust me, when I saw The Hidden after I'd finished Jason Goes to Hell, I went, oh no, because I was like, oh, this is way too similar. And by the way, just so that you know, no one at New Line, the studio that made The Hidden, no one ever said to me, you know, this is kind of like The Hidden. No one ever did that. No one. Okay? Bob Shea, who produced The Hidden, never went, you know, Adam, we might want to pull it back from The Hidden. No. But the thing is, my inspiration wasn't The Hidden. My inspiration was The Thing.
Yes.
And because I'm a Carpenter, I just think, you know, pound for pound, he's one of those filmmakers, you know, he does not get brought up alongside the Coppolas and the Spielbergs and the Scorseses. And I think that's fucking nonsense.
100%.
That is just, you know, snobbery bullshit that our industry is so littered with, when the truth is our movies, you know, filmmakers like Tommy, you know, these are people that actually put money in the studios, actual money. We make movies for nothing and they make a ton of money. And because they don't make $100 million, we don't get the credit for the bump. But the truth is, our films make 5, 6, 7 times their budget.
Yeah,
I mean, Jason Goes to Hell was made for $2.5 million. We made over $18 million at the box office. Okay, I'm sorry. Most studio films never come close to those numbers.
No, let's not even consider how much home video would make that film too.
Oh, by the way, at that time, Jason Goes to Hell was the #1 VHS rental and purchase of all time for New Line Cinema. So it was the #1 at-home release, right? We don't get credit for that. None of us get credit for that stuff. So a guy like Carpenter, you know, people go like, well, he's a great filmmaker. Asterisk, for a horror filmmaker, for a genre filmmaker.
Nah, he's a great filmmaker, period.
Right. That's what I'm saying. And anyone who ever says that to me, I'm like, have you seen Starman? Like, check out just check out like this kind of quiet, beautiful Jeff Bridges, Karen Allen movie he made. You know, like then why don't we have a conversation? How about his Elvis?
Yeah,
that swept the Emmys that year, where Kurt Russell gave this unbelievable performance. So, you know, a lot of these filmmakers get swept under the rug. To get to your point, when it came down to, littering the movie with all these, fanboy moments for me. And again, at the time in 93, people had not done that a lot in movies. There were not a lot of those kinds of homages in film. There were, little moments, but it wasn't sort of the thing.
Yeah.
And so, Evil Dead, of course, is represented in the movie because it's a major plot point for me in the movie. But when I got to the end of the film, I wanted to drag Jason to hell in a spectacular way. And we knew we had these demons coming up from hell and these dark demons and all that stuff. But I was like, I was in my apartment with Dean Laurie, who wrote the script with me, and Noel Cunningham, Sean's son, and they were stoned to the bejesus. I mean, they were out of their minds. And I don't happen to do any of that stuff. So I was clear sober and just having fun watching them get ridiculous.
I can tell you something if you'd like.
Please.
Yeah. Okay.
No, please. What?
Do it. Do it.
No, I want to hear because by the way, here's my favorite thing about Tommy. Tommy's not just a fucking badass director; he's a fucking rock star.
I know.
So, literally, when Friday directors get together, we're like, we're so not the cool kids. He's the cool kid. I'm like, this is a fucking rock star.
Yeah, I gotta say, Tom. Yeah, when Tommy. When Tommy came into the chat, like you do, I gotta say, dude, you do ooze cool. I mean, it's and you don't try it. You just do. But anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
I always believe you are whatever the hell you're doing. I mean, 2 Saturdays ago, I got to be a rock star. Got to do the Man Behind the Mask at this, convention in Denver. And for that moment, I was there. I was in Alice's skin. It was great. Oh, and now I'm just a guy, doing another rewrite on another script at the moment. So yeah, totally writer in Hollywood.
All right.
So I said to the guys, I said, look, doesn't New Line own Freddie outright? Like, isn't that theirs? And I bet they could give me the mask and Freddie's laugh. Mm. And so I called Mark Ordesky and Mike DeLuca, who were the 2 executives on the film. And I said, hey, can I get this? And they were like, why do you want it? And I pitched the last shot of the movie. Those guys live about 8 miles apart from each other in LA. You could have heard their hands high-fiving over Los Angeles at that moment. They rushed the glove to me the next morning. They said, you're approved. You got it. Use it. It's yours. And so that moment happened. Now, by the way, was New Line always planning on putting those 2 characters together in a movie? Of course they were. Yes, that's why they bought Jason. It's the whole reason to buy him.
Right.
But I had no wherewithal about that. That was not in my purview at all. And my response was, I'm a fan. You just killed Freddy and Freddy's dead. His series is done. I want to use Freddy to drag Jason to hell. Like, I got to have a worse bad guy to drag him to hell. Let's do it. And so that did marry the 2 franchises together. So that was me.
And a little bit of Evil Dead in there. You see the Necronomicon in the film, and later there would be a comic book, Ash versus Freddy versus Jason. So Jason Goes to Hell needs some love. Tommy, I was the fascinating thing about I watched with my wife Melissa. I watched basically both films. And Tommy, your film had her laughing. Adam, your film had her almost puking like multiple times. But it's the same franchise, and it's just kind of funny, the body horror feeling and how uncomfortable it is to watch another person eat a human heart, which made me puke as a kid. Fun fact. But Tommy, yours was a blast, and at the same time was still scary. Was extremely well directed, but at the same time, you brought a fun to that franchise and almost a rock and roll element, if you will. There was a tempo. There was a tempo. Jason walked with a tempo. Can you tell me about you coming into the franchise? Because at that point, you're coming in after a new beginning where essentially that was the Halloween 3 of its time, where it just pissed everybody off. It was very, but you come in and you restore Jason to his former glory. You help.
Well put.
Yeah. So can you tell me about coming into the franchise and, having the baggage and finding a new way to tell an old story?
Well, I hope I don't get haters over this, but I didn't want to do a slasher movie, mainly because my roots were much more in gothic horror and, of course, comedy. And I had been trying to get this romantic Frank Capra-esque comedy off the ground for years called Date with an Angel. And this was prior to E.T., prior to Splash, Mannequin, all those sort of fantasy woman things. Nobody wanted it. The closest thing was at Columbia, they were going to do a remake of Mr. Peabody and the Mermaid. So I got going over there, and then it all kind of stopped. And then, I kept going, well, this is the movie I want to make, because I got the script to Frank Capra. He gave me notes. We talked, that's my mentor was Capra. And people say, well, why would you make a Friday the 13th? They say, look how the dialogue goes. I steal everything from those 30s and 40s romantic comedies, very that fast, wise guy, you think faster than most people can, and with comebacks and stuff. So, it's sort of littered with that style, because that's the thing, that I love. But I got a call, and they sent me a script called April Fool's Day. And I thought, well, this is clever.
Yeah.
Can I go in on this? And too late. I think, what was his name? Fred Walton, I think, directed that. Mm-hmm. Is that right? Anyway, and they go, well, sorry, but how would you like to do a Friday the 13th? And I went, really? And it's like, well, you can do whatever you want. And I go, what do you mean I can do whatever I want? And they said, well, they're so upset about the fans with part 5 that they didn't get what they were hoping to get, which is Jason just bringing back from the dead.
Right.
And that's it. So I had what very seldom ever happens any place, where it's like, write the movie. The only thing they asked me to remove in the script was Jason's father that I introduced at the end of the movie. And that was purely because it's like, Frank Mancuso Jr. said, if the audience at the end of the movie goes, okay, the next one's going to be about Jason's father, fuck that. We don't want it. So I had to remove it. And I thought, that, it's not the end of the world. And then ended up years later, they did a Vengeance movie, and they called me and said, can we use Jason's father? And I said, yeah, why not? And you don't have any problem. I said, go with God, Go with the devil. And CJ Graham, who played my Jason, was also the one who was playing the father. And they said, would you like to play the caretaker at the beginning? And I went, hell yeah, I'll play that caretaker, And so away we went. But I love that whole kind of how this, it's a whole nother conversation about how we have a new cinema with fan films. It's just incredible. It never happened, I don't think.
Yeah, just to say to everybody listening right now, Friday the 13th Vengeance is part 1 and part 2 are both fan films that you can watch if you're over 18 on YouTube, and they are very gory, but they specialize in the Tommy Jarvis story. And the Tommy Jarvis legacy and family. And Adam, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't you want to use Tommy Jarvis originally in Jason Goes to Hell?
Yeah, Tommy Jarvis was going to be the hero of the movie.
Okay.
Wow.
And my whole take for him was that, what do you do once you've killed the monster? Like, he's almost like the high school quarterback who's sitting at the end of the bar still talking about the glory days of his youth. And so that was originally supposed to be the hero, and New Line neglected to tell me they didn't buy that character. And so I was not allowed to use it. We did not own that character from Paramount. And so Stephen Freeman was born out of that. But again, another guy who was stalled. That was the idea. So, but I wanted to be Tommy. And the whole purpose was that, the original Friday the 13th, look, okay. Here's what's awesome. Frank Mancuso, who I've worked for, Junior, who I've worked for, who I loved. I really enjoyed working with him. We did some TV together. And I only wish that I'd had Frank Mancuso as the guy that I had to deal with, because I had to deal with Sean Cunningham. So Sean, who had only made the first movie, everybody always gets this wrong. Because he makes money for all of these movies, people think he's actually associated. He's not. He made Friday the 13th, the original, and then he made Jason Goes to Hell. Those are literally the 2 movies he made.
Right.
So Friday the 13th, when they came to Sean to make part 2, his response to them was, great. I want to make a movie about the unluckiest day of the year. Sean never met an idea that John Carpenter had that he didn't want to steal. So Friday the 13th was a direct reaction to Halloween. Like, how do I get all this money?
Yeah, sure.
And then John Carpenter didn't want to make movies about Michael Myers. He wanted to make movies about Halloween, Tales of Halloween. It's why Halloween 3 is the only actual true sequel to the original Halloween, because John Carpenter, that's what he wanted to do with the franchise, was just weird tales about Halloween.
Almost like anthologies.
Exactly like an anthology.
Yeah. Right.
Sean wanted to do the same thing. And when Paramount said, yeah, no, we want to make it about that Jason character. He's like, the 11-year-old who's dead in the lake? What?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
The kid with the hydrocephalic head? No. And so he opted out, right? When you get to Jason Goes to Hell, I'm dealing with a guy who's who hates these movies.
Right.
Who hates these movies, right? He's not interested in these films. And he flat out says, get rid of that fucking hockey mask. And the reason he does is because when they made part 2, they put him in a sack. He already hated the idea of Jason as the villain. Now you got Sackhead Jason, right? And his response is like,
Man Jason.
The Elephant Man is a killer?
Yeah.
And then part 3 comes along, and he literally, this is the quote unquote from Sean. I thought the sack was stupid. That's his response to the hockey mask. Like, he can't believe like how dumb this is, right?
Yeah.
Right, exactly. This iconic thing that is the nightmares of children everywhere, right?
Yep.
So here's the other problem. When I first started working for Sean right after college, and I had been working for Sean as a teenager, but after NYU, he's the one who brought me out to LA to make movies. And I'm working with him, and he was working on a country western musical. He was doing a movie about sideshow freaks that was this searing drama that he was trying to get Sean Penn attached to. Like, he wanted to make... I asked him, like, where do you want to be in 5 years? And he said to me, on the stage at the Academy Awards, accepting an Academy Award. Wow. And my response was, wow, the Friday the 13th guy. Okay, cool. But by the way, that's how the entire industry saw Sean. So even though he hadn't made any of the sequels, he was the man in the resin mask. He was trapped by that hockey mask.
Sure.
So him wanting me to get that out of the movie, that's Sean's brand. Like, he wanted out. He wanted away from this. He knew he could make money on it, which Sean never said no to $1. But he was desperate to get away from that mask.
Yeah, it's almost like he was projecting his insecurities onto the whole thing.
100%. 100%.
Victor Miller hated it too. He never, he loved what it was originally. He wanted to get back and kind of, maybe if you're going to do something about the mother, but, we were in that age now where you had to have, which is why I had such a aversion to slasher movies, because I would go in and pitch my little, mausoleum script, which it was called at that time, eventually became One Dark Night. And they're going, yeah, it's really good. It's creepy and stuff. Where'd you get the idea? Well, I went to catacombs when I was a student in Paris, and I found that claustrophobic thing really, do you have anything where like somebody's like in a desert or some isolated place, forest, I don't care, and their face is covered with something, and then there's girls, and of course you can have some breasts in there, and we can get that going like this for you. And I went, no, I'm going to kind of do this. It's like, okay, see you, sucker. So it was very difficult. Finally got a group of Mormon investors that gave me the $1,000 to make the thing because they needed a tax write-off.
I love it.
That's how that first one goes. You never know.
And I love that film, Tommy. I love that movie.
I love One Dark Night's awesome. One Dark Night's awesome.
Well, yeah. Speaking of, and it's funny because I want to get to something else, Tommy, with you. But it's what's great about now is that you feel like now there are studios that are obviously a lot smaller, but care about what they're making. And, you look at you look at the guys like at A24 that care about that type of film. Yeah, the guys at Neon that are just killing it, that care about this kind of stuff. So, and I'm sure they're all the ones that kind of grew up going, well, we want to have a place where our movies are like, feel like they have a home and a studio, like a program to go through, you guys know that, what I'm not a vehicle, but like a place to funnel it all through, what's the word I'm looking for?
Well, almost like the Roger Corman School of Filmmaking.
Yes, like a place where you feel it has a home. It has a place where it can grow. It has departments. It has like where it's treated properly.
But by the way, I will say New Line was that. Like that. Right. That was the one thing that was great about working with New Line. They, and I will also say Lionsgate has that. Right. Like they're not ashamed of being a genre label. Like they fully embrace it.
Right.
Yeah. We had Roger Corman. We had obviously Hammer horror films. I mean, they were a certain type of, you would go, I would skip school, go down, see a new.
Sure, of course. Yeah.
Any of those, the Edgar Allan Poe series that they did. that was sort of like, okay, you knew what you were going to get.
I love the Roger Corman, Edgar Allan Poe ones with Vincent Price. I've recently got into them. They're incredible. Fucking awesome. They're fucking awesome.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, Tommy. I know that for you, obviously, everyone talks to you about Friday the 13th movies and stuff, and that universe. But I know Date with an Angel is an important movie for you. What was it like at the time to work with, Phoebe Cates, who is just like everybody at my age, at least, like I'm 53, like. And then Emmanuel Bayard, like the two of them, that must have been just crazy to work with both of them on set. I mean, two of the most beautiful women in the world at the time.
Phoebe is one of the funniest, darkest humored girls you could meet. She has such a great attitude. I also had, her boyfriend at the time, a guy named Kevin.
Kevin Lucky Bastard.
Not Kevin Kline.
He was around and I could, bounce stuff off of him. And then at a certain point I said, would you want to do a cameo in this thing? And he said, well, I couldn't take credit. I go, no, but I'd love you to do it. So, our schedule got pushed and he was going to play this guy who was at a church. He comes out of a confessional and he sees the angel and he backs up and he catches on fire. I said, are you all right with that? And he goes, yeah. But he got stuck in England doing this thing called A Fish Called Wanda. And, he finished that, came back, by that point we had to shoot the scene. So I jumped in and did the thing. And he said, oh, is that part? No, I took it, man, but who knew, like then half a year later, he's, got an Oscar for that very thing. But the humility and things, and these two together, just such a great couple.
And they've been together for the longest time, right?
Longest time. Yeah.
40 years, I think.
And what about Emmanuel? What was that like?
Here's how, again, crazy I was. I saw, I'm not exaggerating, boys, over 6,000 women for that part of that angel. I mean,
wow.
In terms of submissions, in terms of doing casting calls at Dino's office in Beverly Hills, with a line that went 2 blocks down the street of all these women. Dino sent me to New York, to Toronto, to London. I mean, I was bouncing all over seeing the top models. It was just incredible. And I went to go see this model in Paris, and I was walking around, and there was these posters of Manon de Spring. Manon de Spring? Manon de Spring. And then these, Jason posters. And I'm going, that's who I got to see her movie. And I saw it, and it was exactly what I was looking for. Somebody who you could hear her thoughts, because it was almost without dialogue, that movie. So I decided to go after the biggest star in Paris, in France, in Europe at that time.
Love it.
And it was like, yeah, right. So Dino had us at the Georges V Hotel, which God knows how much that was. But, he said, just stay there, bring me back a goddamn angel. So I sat there, we waited and waited and waited for her to come back from her vacation. She didn't. So I had to finally come back, started picking other people, still was obsessed with her, then found out she was coming to Montreal to do a promotion for her movie, got Dino to pay to get me up there. I got into the bar with her. She had a couple of drinks. I pitched the story. At the end of it, I'm going, you want to do this, right? She goes, and she said the next morning she had no idea she even said yes. But I had her, which was amazing. And she was, she was quite a star, from the standpoint of a European star, but sweet as can be, really cooperative, and just had such charisma, to be around her. She just, when she turned that light on, it was amazing. Yeah. And every weekend she got on a fucking Concorde and flew to Paris to see her boyfriend. And, was she the one that used to say fly for fuck? I don't know. And be right on time, come Monday morning, So it was like, and she had an altar. What was his name? Daniel Otero, the French actor. He was also in Manon. And she had an altar to him with candles and stuff. And, just happened she didn't burn down the place. But, talk about romantic lover. I mean, she was amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Tommy, we just talked about a whole bunch of your films, but Adam, I gotta say, something fascinating I learned last time was that you were the writer and co-creator of this incredible movie that I really, 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 really like, including about teenage zombies. And your take on it was very unique in comparison to the one we saw. But the film My Boyfriend's Back is an incredible film, but is even more incredible in conception when you find out like really what its original intentions were. Can you just give the audience a quick summary of what this dark comedy, how much darker it originally was?
Oh yeah. When it was back when it was called Johnny Zombie, when it got bought. It was the movie that I brought out to LA that I wanted to direct. It was not involved with Friday the 13th at that point. And I brought Sean a script called Johnny Zombie that had been written by Dean Laurie, and I had been workshopping it for about 4 years with him at school while we were at NYU together. And it's sort of a romantic comedy about a young guy, Johnny, who wants to feel special for one night in his life. He's a normal, ordinary kid. He's not a nerd. He's not a cool kid. He's in the middle, like most everybody is. And he wants to be special. And there's this girl who lives across the street from him who's always been in love with, but she's like his best friend. And on the night that he finally gets up the courage to ask her out, he is shot and killed in a convenience store holdup protecting her.
Wow.
And as she's holding his dying body, he says, "Want to go to the prom?" And of course, she's not going to say no. He's literally dying for her.
Right.
And so she says yes. And he happens to be buried in a graveyard in this little town that happens to be over an Indian burial ground. By the way, all of North America is over an Indian burial ground.
Yeah, well, that's it. Yeah,
exactly. Really, anywhere you can't throw a stick without hitting an Indian burial ground. And so he is his need to come back for this date is so strong that he rises from the dead, and everybody in the cemetery goes, no, don't leave. You can't leave the cemetery. If you leave the cemetery, your body's going to fall apart in 3 days, and your prom is in 5 days. So you're going to have to eat the flesh of the living. And Johnny's like, I don't care what I got to do. I'm going to the prom. And he leaves, and of course has to eat the flesh of the living, which he finds abhorrent. But the thing about the movie was that the zombies stuck in the graveyard, they all see Johnny make this incredibly powerful statement by leaving to go do this human thing that he needed to do.
Right.
Well, all the zombies have been there for decades and centuries, whatever. They all just want to go home. They all just want to be with their loved ones. And they all go and leave the cemetery, and none of them are eating the flesh of the living. It's not a zombie outbreak. It's not that movie. It's the idea was, Dean and I were living in New York in the 80s. This is when we were at NYU, and a lot of our friends were dying from AIDS.
Right.
And so we wrote this, comedic allegory about what happens when people go home and they don't want to hurt anybody. There's nothing wrong with them that's going to affect you. They're just dying.
Right. And
the amount of people that had shunned their family members, who had closed the door on people, who just wanted to be held, just wanted to be close to you. So we were writing this like kind of political movie.
Right.
That was also super gory and a musical, because my whole background was music. I ran 2 theaters that were musical theaters. And my whole directing experience was in directing musical theater. That was my life. And so we had done this kind of thing that was sort of, Rocky Horror Picture Show adjacent. And New Line wanted the movie, and Disney wanted the movie as well. By the way, because no one in Hollywood reads, and Tommy probably knows this better than anybody. Seriously, like, you can't get people to read a fucking script. Like, they just don't read. They read a book report that a film student who just graduated from USC writes for somebody to read, and that's how they make a movie.
Wow.
No one reads. So I said, hey, I work with actors. It's my love. Why don't we do a table read and invite executives to the table read, and we read the script for them? And so we did this table read. I had George Hearn, who won a Tony for playing Sweeney Todd on Broadway. I had Charlotte Rae, another one of Sondheim's muses, who was Mrs. Garrett on The Facts of Life.
Sure.
Yeah. I had a table read that was nothing but Broadway performers. And the guy who played Johnny, true story, had been my next door neighbor for 3 years at NYU, Adam Sandler. It was
Wow.
literally the week before he got SNL and moved back to New York.
Wow.
So that was my table read. And I got 2 studios to start bidding on this movie. And we got into a bidding war between them. And I kept begging Sean. I'm like, Sean, listen, please go with New Line. Please go with New Line. They understand the movie. They're the right house. I'll get to direct the film. If we go with Disney, I don't know what's going to happen to this thing. And, Disney had more money.
Mm.
And Sean followed the money like a dumbass. Instead of protecting a film, he made a paycheck. And you know what? That movie, I'm telling you, if New Line had let us make, and look, Disney made a $8.5 million movie. They were never going to let a 21-year-old idiot direct it. Yeah. New Line totally would have let a 21-year-old idiot direct it, because a year later they let me direct their number 2 franchise under Nightmare on Elm Street. So this was it's the tragedy of how all of this works in our business. That said, that script mistakenly, the script that we originally sold, not the one that Disney neutered, but the original script got onto Ron Howard's desk years later.
Wow.
And Dean Lorey, the guy who'd written that script, that's truly how his career really began. Because suddenly Dean was doing Major Pain with Damon Wayans. He wrote a bunch of stuff for Ron. Funny enough, him and I both ended up working at Imagine for years because of that script. So, that screenplay was the real deal. It was extraordinary. And Disney was never going to make that. By the way, I don't blame Disney. Disney does what Disney does. That's what they do. So you can't blame the House of Mouse for being what it is.
No.
But New Line was the home for that movie. And, money dictated how that all went. By the way, one quick thing, Tommy mentioned Kevin Kline, who, oh my God. So as a kid, my uncle Ned Eisenberg, who you guys will know as Eddie in The Burning. Brilliant, unbelievable actor. Yeah. Is extraordinary guy. We lost him 2 years ago, but amazing person. Ned, when I was a child, he would take me to Broadway theater, and always like really interesting stuff. Never sort of like the flavor of the day. So I went to see Ain't Misbehavin'. I went to see all of Mammoth's stuff. And this is when I was really little. And he took me to see Pirates of Penzance. And Kevin Kline was the lead of the show. And I ended up with this like man crush at 11 years old on Kevin Kline that was so insane that my big brother Steven and I stole one of those New York. If you're ever on the Metro, the New Haven line from New York to New Haven, there's this train line where my home was on, and they had these giant 8-foot posters, these like corrugated posters that stayed inside these big cases. Yeah. My brother and I broke one of those and stole the poster out of it. And my entire childhood was that poster. Well, I would go to New York, and again, as a little kid, there's a trick for all of you who live in Manhattan. You can do this. When intermission happens, they let everybody out into the street so people can kind of relax and stretch their feet and whatnot. And when you drift back in, no one checks the tickets again. People just go back into the theater.
Right.
Well, if you drift in with the theater and you're wearing a blazer and you're 12, they won't stop you. They think you're with your grandparents. Yeah. So you can slip in. And I saw the second act of Pirates of Penzance with Kevin Kline another at least 12 times.
Wow. That's great. I love it. I love it.
So, yeah.
Funny enough, I learned that fact about you could just go in after intermission and it's like some forgettable Jason Biggs movie called Loser. Like they've actually written that part in. So I'm wondering if they've redone the security since it's become such a well-known thing.
Probably not.
But I don't know. Probably not. It's pretty easy stuff.
Adam, you're such a fascinating guy. Tommy, you're a fascinating guy too. You're a professional mime.
Yes, I guess you could say that. I was paid for the for the job. The professional and mime just don't seem like they go together. But I guess it was 69 that the band, I mean, this town got so weird come 69 with Manson. All the music went very psychedelic.
Sure.
Everybody was, dropping acid. The whole R&B kind of music that I loved because of the influence of the Stones and the Beatles and Yardbirds and all that was kind of disappearing into a whole other kind of rock and roll, which eventually, went into what we loved in the 70s. And then, of course, the 80s became, metal and punk and things. But I didn't really what to do when I performed. A few people said, "Did you ever study mime?" And I didn't even know what the word meant. And Marcel Marceau came to LA.
Oh,
I went and saw him. I didn't particularly like what he did. It just, I liked the comedy of the Chaplin and Keaton and those guys. And this stuff with the white face and stuff didn't quite gel with me. But he was the guy that you would go study with, and he was going to open a school in Paris. I had no money, bands making no money. So I got the one and only straight job I ever had in my life, working at a warehouse. I worked myself from, boxer to foreman in 6 months, took whatever I had, and off to Paris I went. No, don't speak, French, nothing. So it was like a real turning point. And then once I finished that, came back, now I had no money, girlfriend left, band was gone. Couple of guys had OD'd. It was just a whole nother world. So I just said, I'm going to hit the streets and put down a hat, and whatever I make is how I'm going to eat. So that was sort of an existence for, almost a year, no car, only hitchhiked, and, that wonderful world. But because of the mime, you got hired on weird ass things. Like I met with Woody Allen. He asked me to work with him on Sleeper because he wanted to do a comic robot. Wow. So I showed him, what I did. And then he said, yeah, that's not funny. And I said, well, what if you do a very staccato kind of thing? That I like. So I ended up on that, got a SAG card, got all my friends in. And then it just went from that into a mind to be in a mutated bear costume for a prophecy. And then Captain Star and the Black Hole.
Well, yes, I want to ask you about
crazy shit, but it gave me a chance to go to each department because you didn't do much all day, sure, waiting for your scene. So I could kind of learn on the job and, kind of get paid to be there. Because my dad went to USC Film School. He graduated, I think, in 1949. He couldn't get work because, film school? Yeah, right, kid. No, you got to have a relative. You don't go to film school. I grew up in Culver City with his dreams that never happened. So I took his camera and started going into the back lots of MGM and shooting shit, at 7 because that's what he wanted to do. I thought I was pretty much shot. Yeah. So it's been a kind of a weird, how things kind of came together. But the mime is still there. I'm actually working on a script now that deals with one, a very twisted one. So it never goes away. It's kind of in my DNA.
Tommy, you just said it. You kind of, when you were giving the history of what you had done, you talked about Captain Star and the Black Hole. The Black Hole is it's kind of one of these movies I feel, and I don't know if it's because it's never gotten enough. It seems like the physical releases for the Black Hole have always been few and far between. It's way overdue for a 4K transfer, all that stuff, but the Black Hole is still, for sci-fi fans, is still regarded as like a really badass movie. How did you feel when you booked that job, and then when you finally saw the movie after?
I was booked to basically choreograph the humanoids and Sentry robots.
Okay.
And that was it. And then I did some of the stunt stuff. And of course, I had a huge crush on Yvette Mignoux, who was in the movie. So being around her was amazing. But other than that, guys, everybody on that movie hated it. Hated it that the fact that, Gary Nelson was a great director, very funny, kind of guy who didn't really put the kind of humor that he was capable of doing in that movie.
Right.
But it was that thing where it's like, you know what? They should have done Star Wars. George Lucas came. The guard wouldn't let him in. So they fired him. Now this is their Star Wars. But, it's a much slower thing. The score, But I thought it was going to come and go, and that was it. But it's really kind of found its audience over the years, which is really amazing. But at the time, Captain Star came about because Gary was looking at me showing something to somebody, and he goes, "We're going to write a part for you." So what do you mean? We're going to put you in up against Little Bob and whatever little robot, was, Vincent, and, do the shooting gallery thing. So, they built me a special suit that was rubber so I could spin my arms and do some of the shit that was in there.
Yeah.
So it was great. So suddenly there's all these Ernest Borgnine, Anthony Perkins,
come on,
and Tommy Mcloughlin at the bottom of the bill there. But I thought, hey, I got a name on a big, Disney movie. But it was a long, long gig because that movie went on, and they had no ending. They didn't know what was going to happen, when you were going to go into the black hole. And one of my favorite stories, and I'll shut up.
Oh, dude, that's why you're here.
Miller, the son-in-law of I think it was Diane Disney. The husband. He was a quarterback, Ron Miller, and he took over Disney. And at that time, he had no business running, a Walt Disney studio. And nobody went to dailies except me because I was obsessed with running anything I could. And I remember the visual effects guys came in, and they were showing him, what they had for the black hole, that swirly thing. And he's sitting there going, yeah, that's good, guys. Any chance we could, maybe see into it, a little deeper? Yeah, Ron, that's just going to cost another, I don't know, $4,000. Oh, never mind. Forget. And I thought, son of a bitch, Walt would have said, I don't give a fuck what it costs. Sure. Let me dig down into that thing. Mm-hmm. And that kind of was where the studio was at that point until Splash came along and everything changed, when the new regime came in. But it was that thing of, everybody was afraid of making some sort of fresh decision or anything was going to cost more than what they felt they'd already spent.
And they had spent a lot of money on that movie. Like they spent a hell of a lot, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was one of the most expensive movies that they had made up until that point. So it's like,
well, they didn't know where they were going. That was the thing. It was one of those runaway.
But it's still an interesting film of its time, and I think it's still something that, if you're into science fiction, and if you're if you're someone who's like I don't want to call it a historian, but if you're someone that's into what was going on in movies in that late 70s period, going into the 80s with everybody chasing the Star Wars dream, it is definitely something you need to see for sure.
But you know what? But there's a theme that seems to keep kind of coming back up, which is, when people were making movies in the late 60s and into the 70s, and even just towards the 80s, more of the studios were being run by people who believed in filmmakers, who believed in directors, who were willing to roll the dice. And you guys brought up, A24 and Neon earlier. And I brought up New Line. These were places that, again, filmmaker friendly, not wanting to battle filmmakers, wanting to actually bolster new ideas and new voices and fresh thought. And when we keep hearing this thing about, that movie didn't work. Why? Well, the executives didn't want to spend the money on the thing, or they were afraid that this was too far outside the box and that the audience wasn't ready. I think, look, and we talk about even, in the franchise that both of us are here to represent.
Sure.
There is no reason why the fans shouldn't have gotten more Friday the 13th content, whatever that ended up looking like, whether it's television, whether it's more of the video game, whether it's more movies. There's no reason that shouldn't have happened, except for bean counters, except for people who care more about money than they care about movies. And ultimately, the people who actually suffer for that is the audience. And the problem is, because of the way our business has turned, especially in recent years, because of the streamers, because we are no longer, people are not voting with their ticket anymore. They're not voting with their dollar at the box office. There's this nebulous vote that's happening that's behind closed doors, where we're not allowed to see how many clicks things get and how many views things get, because they weren't paying any of us what we were supposed to be paid. Because of all of this, the bean counters are kind of winning in all of this, and they're squelching forget about just what filmmakers want to do, but what an audience desperately wants to see. And I think that will come up and bite them in the ass, because the truth is, the only reason we even talk about an A24 and a Neon is because those movies keep working, and they're working at the box office. They're working. Look, I am not, truth be told, I am not a huge fan of long legs, right? I love The Black Coat's Daughter. Love that movie. Adored it.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't a huge fan of Longlegs. However, I love that it exists.
Sure.
I love that people love that movie. Like, I love that movie made so much money. I'm right now, we're working, Skeleton Crew, my company is working a lot with Bloody Disgusting, with Cineverse and Cinedyne and Screambox, and they've been amazing. Like, they did an incredible job with the latest film, Secret Santa. We're working on new stuff with them, including, well, some other, I can't say. But I love working with these guys because, look, the Terrifier movies, again, not particularly my cup of tea, but guess what? I still love that somebody's going, wait a minute, there is a niche audience that wants this level of extreme stuff.
Yep.
And you know what? We're going to let this maniac keep making these movies. Like, we're going to support what he wants to do. We're not going to put walls around him. We're going to go, dude, whatever you want to create, go for it. And he has an audience that's willing to vote for it with their money.
Yeah, and he's also Ryan spent. We both spent a weekend with him, and
awesome.
He's like, dude. He's not only is he really good at what he does. He's a fucking rad dude. Like
he's a rad dude. Yeah,
he's a
Damien's great.
Guy. Great, Damien's
there you
great
go.
guy. And you just want to cheer for him. If I can just bring this up really quickly, because it opened last weekend, and what's great about this is speaks exactly what you were saying, Adam. And of course, what you're saying too, Tommy, about letting filmmakers be filmmakers. Everyone's talking about The Substance. I don't know if either one of you guys have seen it yet, but again, it's fucking. I fucking saw it like 6 weeks ago. I saw it so early. I saw one of the earliest screenings that they did. And I loved it. And what's great is everyone's just going, this is so fresh. And I'm like, and kind of like you said about Longlegs, you're like, I love The Substance, but fresh. Well, I mean, if you watch Cronenberg, or if you watch The Thing, or if you watch, it's not that fresh, but it's great that there's people that say, oh man, I loved this movie and I loved what they did. And I love what they, and what makes me say is that maybe some of these kids are going to go, you know what? I want to go back and watch The Fly, and I want to go back and watch The Thing, and I want to see what, because dude, this movie you're going to see when have you either? Well, I know you said you're seeing it, Tommy.
I've seen it. It's incredible. It's incredible. Yeah. And by the way,
and it's so incredible on so many different levels.
She is such a fucking badass.
Oh yeah, Demi Moore.
Her film Revenge. The two of us were on tour together at a bunch of festivals together.
You're talking about the filmmaker. Yes. Yeah.
Oh yes, I am.
Yeah, she's a badass.
And I tried to hire her. I tried to hire her for a movie, and she was making The Substance. Is like, no, I'm already working at that. I was like, I got it. It's okay. But I tried because I was like, the minute I saw Revenge, I was like, okay, I have to work with this woman. She is She's
incredible.
Fucking extraordinary visionary. Like, talk about someone who's got a vision. My God, does she have a vision?
Well, yeah. And what's great about the film is that, it can be seen on so many different levels. Like, it can just be seen for face value as a great, kind of whatever, but it can all, I mean, if go see that movie with a couple of women that have worked in the corporate world, or that have, and been through the ringer, and all. You guys are filmmakers. I mean, you've seen how women have been treated in Hollywood for years.
My wife's an actress.
There you go. So, man, and Ryan, you're going to love it when you see it, and Tommy, you as well. I'm sure you guys are going to really appreciate it.
It's fantastic.
It's fantastic. Movies like that that make me go, there's still hope. There's still hope.
But by the way, it's not for everyone, and that's okay. That's okay.
That's
okay. 4-quadrant filmmaking. It's like nothing else is getting made but 4-quadrant filmmaking at the big studios. And I go, guys, you're actually just leaving money on the table because you're disregarding a giant audience that just needs to be catered to for what they love.
That's true.
That's what's being lost. And again, thank God for A24. Thank God for Neon. Thank God for Bloody Disgusting. Thank God for these people who are actually going, no. There's and again, in the same way that the big studios used to get financed by guys like Tommy and myself.
Yeah.
It's the little movies that make a big profit. That's how you keep a studio alive, because you make one $200 million movie that doesn't make $580 million at the box office, because that's what it's got to make to break even. If it doesn't do that, you're fucked. Your studio's fucked.
Yeah.
You give Tommy or myself $5 million, look what we'll deliver for.
Well, that's it.
I'm not talking about the usual fucking numbers that we used to talk about. Those numbers don't exist anymore. But I'm telling you, you give us a reasonable budget and you will see a profit off of that budget. That's what's missing.
It's great. It's great to see it like another one that came out this year that was fucking phenomenal. I saw it at Fantasia. And, because we're from Montreal, we're so lucky to have, we have access to Fantasia Film Festival every year. Like it's like, it's the best. It's the home of all this shit we're talking about. But Cuckoo was another one that was just, Cuckoo was fucking great. Amazing.
Terrific.
Cuckoo was great. Yeah. So
terrific.
I think we're in such a good place horror wise. And, even some of the Netflix stuff, like I loved that movie that Glenn Close was in. It was so silly, but it was great. I don't know if you guys have seen it, The Deliverance.
Oh yeah. Right.
I haven't seen it yet.
It's so fucking fresh and different. Did you like it, Tommy?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Cause I didn't know what I was going to get. She was amazing. And I just loved, it was, they took a lot of risks, doing that thing, and they played it so straight. And it really bothered a lot of people. Like, that really happened and stuff. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's all stories one way or the other, whether it's your truth or somebody else's truth, as long as it seems true at the time you're watching it.
It's 5 o'clock.
But the quote that sticks with me constantly is that wonderful thing that Steve Jobs said years ago is, I'm going to give them something they didn't know they wanted until they get it. And a lot of these movies are successful. I mean, my biggest, love of this past year has been, I saw The TV Glow. I don't know if you've seen that.
I want to see that. I've been meaning to.
Yeah, you got it. I love it.
Right. Okay.
Are you a physical guy, Adam?
Yeah. I kept feeling like, boy, it's talking to me, because I felt like a freak growing up. We all do in some way, shape, or form.
Sure.
Every time I go to a convention, I feel like one of us. We all are kind of this, freaky group. And I'm watching this movie and going, okay, there's a little hint about gay relationship and stuff in there, but not heavy-handed at all. Then I find out, it's a trans director who wrote and directed it. And he brought to this thing that she, I guess, really, Jane, something that really spoke to any of us that feel out of place. And you never knew from scene to scene where it was going to go. A car driving shot, maybe just sitting in the back seat, on the back of somebody's head, see their reflection in the mirror. That's it. No bunch of coverage and stuff. But it had a presence, a personal presence that permeated it. And I was fortunate, Adam, actually to see Longlegs before all the hype. So it's the same thing. I go, what's going on here? Oh, wait a minute. This is Anthony Perkins' son, whose mother kept this fact that his dad was gay away from him until he was a teenager. That all resigns through or lives through that film. And the mother dying in 9/11. I mean, suddenly being this kid going, you're now all this attention because your mother died in that tragedy. And that I felt all that stuff somehow permeated that movie. And that's what I was more, a fan of, other than, like he taught you, we start with Silence of the Lamb and then we kind of go demonic. Right. And Nicolas Cage is always a force to be reckoned with.
Always.
This time he was next to Invisible and just kind of threw himself into this character, which, it could have been Pee Wee Herman. Paul Reubens could have done that.
Mm-hmm.
It was just so creepy in that very quiet way, which I think, again, whatever, Oz put into that as he did it, just felt to me like, gee, I didn't know I wanted to see a movie like this. And then after I saw it, I went, that's a weird experience, that never had, had I not just, I thought it was a horror movie, another level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It made me rush home and watch Vampires Kiss again. I mean, it did. Like, I was like, I need more Cage like that. Man. Don't we all need more Cage?
Listen, Mandy still is like such a, people don't talk about Mandy enough too. I mean, I think we're in, I really do think so, cause we've been on for an hour now and I want to give you guys, I don't want to keep you guys too long, but I just got to say, I know you do, but I have to say that, what's really, really nice is that, all of this stuff we're talking about, all these directors that are allowed to make the kind of movies they're allowed to make, this kind of stuff wouldn't exist if you guys didn't make the kind of movies you made. And, and both of these movies, we're talking about today, because it is the month of Halloween, and it really, really speaks to the filmmakers and what they do along their journey, how they leave these crumbs for people that they pick up, and it's all how it keeps going. And it's just nice to see what I've taken away from this conversation the most today is the passion that both of you still have for new film. And it's so nice to see, veteran, hate to say it because you guys are a little older, but veteran filmmakers that still see everything that's fucking new. Like there's so many people that don't. They're just like, oh yeah, I did that. And it's great. Like every movie we're talking about, you guys, Adam, you're holding up a copy of a physical copy, of Saw the TV Glow. Tommy, you're going to see The Substance tomorrow, and you've got that glimmer in your eye about it. So that's what this is to me all about. It's the passion, and it speaks, and through these Friday the 13th movies, and through all this stuff that exists today, it's all because of passion. And I'm such a big believer in that. That kind of stuff is infectious, and you don't even know sometimes when you put something, because you guys create these things in vacuums. It's when you go to conventions and stuff that you finally you see what people feel about them. But when you get to see the love that people have for these things, it's really, really important, and it's important work that you guys did. So never ever think that it wasn't.
It's hard. Yeah. I mean, I just came back from a convention in Kentucky, in a little town. And again, it was all these people come in, and it's like, look at this, and there's some scene from a movie, or look at, and you're going, holy shit. I mean, you're going to have that till you're in the coffin. He goes, yeah, I'm proud of it.
I know.
It's incredible that it means so much, to them, or people that say, your movie got me through the death of my parents. I said, what? My grandmother took me to go see, Jason Lives, and I was just 8 years old. And I said, at 8 you were in? Yeah, but it was great because I just went into that. And to this day, I can watch it anytime. And you go, this is really amazing, But again, if I look at Vincent Price's movies, I wanted to be him. I had scrapbooks of cutout pictures of him. It was like I so related to that, to that dark side as being somehow comfortable in a weird way. And like you say, we have, I think that's what also Adam and I kid off on, is that we're still these 20-year-olds who want to make movies. It has. I cannot see the passion still there. And you never give that up if you love, this medium. And I don't know where things are going to go with the AI. I can't say I'm scared of it any more so than I could say I was scared when sound came in. As much as I love silent movies, and I love, because of my mime background, it's so much interesting when you spend the first 10 minutes of the movie without a word and you just get into that. Or as one DP once told me, he said, what you got to shoot for is that first scene, that first shot, because the audience goes into the dark and then they float, and whatever that first image is, that's what you want to pull them in and try to keep them there, in that universe. Mm-hmm. And some of these movies, we're talking about when young filmmakers either trip into it or they've seen enough good stuff that, I got to have something like this. Steal it. I mean, I've told my students for 10 years, take that Kubrick shot and use it. And I don't care if the other students go, I bet you got that from Kubrick. Yeah, it's a great shot, wasn't it?
Great. Do it.
Very open about it. Scorsese's very open about it. You have to take from the masters and put them, through you, because it's going to be different, because you are different. But you're going to use that hopefully in a way that's like, wow, I didn't realize that's what was going on, this dolly zoom or something, in the shot that we got from some other great filmmaker. I mean, but again, it is just having that love of taking all the tools that we get and what are we going to do with it? I have no idea where the AI, but I hope I'm around long enough to see what happens without ripping people off, the artists.
Right. Yeah. Right. And by the way, to that end, to what Tommy's saying, look, what I would beg, and I do beg, student filmmakers and even just young people who want to make movies, go out and watch movies. Don't just watch what's happening now. Don't just sit in front of Netflix. Like, go out and find physical copies of movies. By the way, the streamers, don't trust all of them on what movies you're looking at, because a lot of them are cut and changed. A lot of them are different than what they were intended to be. Find those first cuts of movies and look at what came before you. Because, you know, when I teach at colleges, I'm constantly like struck by the idea that so few people have seen stuff before they were born, before they were born. And I'm like, when I was a film student, I knew everything from the 20s to the 40s. Like, I knew those movies.
Yeah.
And people are losing their history. And you can't look, I think people should make movies about life, not about other movies. That said, if you're a filmmaker, the tools that Tommy's talking about, those tools, they're all you've got. And, you know, I worked with Brian De Palma for a bit, and he changed my life. And, you know, people accuse him of ripping off Hitchcock. And his response to it is, well, yeah, I make thrillers. Who else should I be ripping off?
I know.
You know, I love when the Untouchables came out and people went, oh, well, it's just the Odessa step sequence from Battleship Potemkin. I'm like, okay, listen, critic. Listen, you film critic studies asshat. No one knows what that movie is. So cut him some slack, man. I'm sorry. He learned something from Eisenstein. Well done, sir.
Yeah.
You know, so yes, it's like, take it and make it yours. I mean, Quentin Tarantino does not have a career if the blaxploitation movement of the 1970s didn't happen. If that didn't happen, Quentin literally does not have a voice. Yeah. So it's like we are born through the art that we experience as kids and into our adulthood. We're born through that canal. And if you don't grab from those artistic parents, look, my movie, Jason Goes to Hell, has a sense of humor because Tommy made a really fucking funny Friday the 13th movie.
Right.
That was, I was like, this is, you know, it for me, I'm a sister movie to that movie because I go like, no, the humor of your film and the acting in Jason Lives, it was like the first time when everybody was good. Like the cast was so good that I went, no, I want to be like that. I want to be like that movie. I want to have a sense of humor. I want to have actors and characters that you really care about when they die, not just bowling pins that you knock over. And so, you know, for me, Tommy was one of those influences that directly influenced my film. So yeah, I know what came before you, man. Know your history. Know your film history. Physical media, dude.
Yeah, I mean, it's so important.
I got 20,000 of these in this house. I live in a fucking warehouse.
Of that copy or movies in general?
No, movies in general. Not just, I really like that film, but not that much.
Tommy, I got to say, we were bringing up what came before, and Tom, like I was thinking, you know, who's a great actor in Jason Lives? The actor who played Tommy Jarvis, and then it dawned on me, he played Tommy Jarvis again for the first time in almost 40 years in Friday the 13th Vengeance Part 2. And that must have been such a trip of an experience, and getting to hang out with Richie Ramone and everything, like such a cool. I've been trying to get Richie on this show for months, so maybe if he sees this, Richie, big fan, love what you do. You're a great actor too. You had a lot of heart. What was the Vengeance set like? Because this isn't Cunningham fucking anything up or just, you know, this and that. This is fans making the film. What was Vengeance like? Because I'm dying to know. Because since I've talked to you last, I've seen them both, and I think they're fucking awesome.
Well, since you brought up Richie, we've become friends. I mean, just because I saw him in the movie, I wasn't around when they shot it. You know, I came in, I think, the day after he did his scene. But I was so kind of impressed that here's a, you know, rock star basically doing himself, but he's been getting a lot of parts since then. So I got his number. We started talking, you know, rock and roll and stuff. Then we started going out to lunch. Now we're going to movies. Now I said, you know, have you seen Long Legs? No. Okay. Yeah, you and the girlfriend are coming. We're going to go see it. So I mean, it's like it's been great. So yeah, there you go. You know, it's just like every so often in this business, you end up just happened to connect to somebody, and you realize, geez, there's a kindred spirit there. But the set was great. I mean, James Brooks, who also plays Jason in those things, he just, that second one is like more is more. I mean, he did not cut back. I was like going, okay, how many more people could he kill in here? But the fans of it up there in Seattle, and they were going nuts. And I went, okay, what do I know? It's a new generation. More is more. Never Hike Alone, which was sort of the first one that kind of did this, Vincent DeSante, he was sitting right next to me 2 weeks ago in Colorado. And, there has been this kind of weird competition between, since he was the first one to do it, and then he was working with those guys, and then they split apart. So there was a little bit of, tension there.
What the fuck is with this franchise? They always do that. It's always people starting off and then going off in their own directions.
Well, it's, it's just like, you get a studio together and there's all these people, and then everybody starts making their own, or agencies. It's kind of part of the process.
It's like it's like your own version. It's like, this is our version of the Temptations.
That's what happened with Night of the Living Dead as well, right? Because the spinoff was Return of the Living Dead, and then George kept doing his. Yeah, it's crazy. Fuck.
I mean, either you don't mind doing it, or you're taking the money, which we get back to Sean there.
Right.
Something there that it's like, okay, I don't like it, but I'll do it. But I would hate to get into that kind of, mentality. It's like, it's only good if people watch, like when I was doing TV movies, which I did a shitload of them, as you know, but I could do 3 movies a year as opposed to 1 movie every 3 years. And it put me in a box. It took me away from the horror genre and stuff. I suddenly was like, yeah, he used to be a horror guy. But I got to work with some incredible actors. And that bottom line for me, that's all I care about, is watching these people embrace these roles and suddenly do this magic in front of you, and you get to say action and cut and maybe give a couple little notes, and yet here you are telling Kirk Douglas what to do, or some of the legendary people that I was very blessed to work with. So the whole thing again with a movie to me is, it's like, it's got to feel like it's a piece of you. Either it came from your head or it was translated through you for the script and stuff. It's an incredible experience. So it's, when you have the passion like that we're all talking about here, it's awful when you don't get to do that. It's like, how old are you? No, next.
Yeah, and no, you get written off. Yeah.
You can't think that way. I mean, one of my favorite movies was Battle Royale. You guys see that?
Yeah.
I mean, that guy was 80 something, and he made that movie.
Well, you look at like it's so true, and like when Miller came back and did, Fury Road. It's like he came back and he just whipped his dick out and was like, I just want to remind you how big this is, and I'm going to go back now.
And by the way, not only that, he gets John Seale, who's 2 years older than him and had retired 5-6 years ago, to not only come on as the DP, but to operate that movie. I'm sorry, Grandpa is on the truck, holding a camera. That's what Grandpa is.
And Furiosa was another example of people just like this fucking angry mob shitting on stuff. Like, come on, it was amazing. All right, let me just ask you guys. I want to ask you about this because I don't want to not get to it, because it's important that for me it's important I talk about this, because we talk about actors that grind it out and that really really try to get their careers off the ground. And just recently, a friend of ours, well, I don't know if you know him, Ryan, but a friend of mine, a guy named Rye Barrett. Ryan is an actor from Ontario, and he just had a really, really big success this last year with In a Violent Nature. He plays the killer in the movie. I haven't seen it yet, but I wanted to ask both. So have either of you guys seen it? Ryan, I don't know if you've seen it, but both of you guys seen it. Okay, good.
Yes.
So I wanted to ask you guys, because a lot of people, this was a big buzz. There's a lot of buzz around this movie. And I know Ryan's a buddy of mine, and I haven't seen it yet because I refuse to see it I want to see it on a big screen. So I'm going to try to wait until there's a screening of it. And I know there will be again, but how did you guys like it? Because I know a lot of people spoke, it spoke to the Friday the 13th and the killer and all that, and that kind of vibe. And so did you guys enjoy it?
You want to go first or second?
No, please. You take it.
Yeah, I had heard kind of the buzz about it, but I went and saw it before reviews or whatever. I have a wonderful girlfriend, Laura, who loves 80s stuff. far more than I do, knows everybody in the cast, knows everything else that they do, what the call times were. I mean, it's absurd that I've got a girlfriend that knows everything about 80s rock and roll and movies. So come Thursday night, it's like, when's the show? Boom, we're there 10 o'clock. Thursday night before it opens on Friday. Thank God, they've got these AMC theaters where you pay one price and you get to go 3 times a week if you want to. I don't have that much freedom, but I'll go and see things a couple times if I can, because first time is just let it happen. Second time, all right, how the fuck did they do that magic trick? You want to go back and learn the illusion. So I went in. She was loving every second of it. My first sort of typical low budget filmmaker thing is like, they must have did the cut and it was too short. So it's like, do we still have more shots of him walking? Let's put all this in. So, everybody's going, it's from the POV of the killer. Wrong. He's dropping behind the killer and walking, So right away I was already going, no, Halloween did the kid in the mask and that was the POV of the killer.
Yes.
This was like, you were part of it, which again, valid, it works. The effects there was one in particular that's just like a showstopper. People I haven't seen in a long time. People go, fuck. I mean, just go crazy in their seat. Right? Come back down. No. And here I am. Okay. It was amazing. It was just amazing from that standpoint. But it was the Friday the 13th everybody's been wanting for the last 10, 15 years. And they delivered it. They delivered what they wanted to see. So am I going to say anything bad? Fuck no. I watch people going out being happy. I watch people coming out of the Strangers, ripoff that a fairly decent filmmaker with a big past had done. And I was so angry that people, didn't like it, didn't love it, because it was just junk, because he had to make 3 of them and he rushed it all together. And it was just, kind of stomping along for a certain amount of time. And then they're like, we're done. Okay, let's get on, wait for the second one. I don't think it did that well, so I don't know where the second and third one's going to play, probably Shudder. But things like that make me angry because it's ruining the franchise that we care about.
Sure.
This one did amazing. And then I heard it was funded by the Canadian, government and, with film grants and things, I guess. Yep. And I went, well, God bless these guys. They're making something.
Fucking Canadians, man. How about you, Adam?
It's a similar reaction because it's a lot of walking. It is a lot of walking. And I personally don't find that to be a slow burn. I just find that to be burning footage.
Right.
That said, to all of the points that Tommy just made, especially effects wise, and look, I think that the point of view of the movie is connecting with an audience, because I think there's part of it. It's almost a video game in the sense that you're behind that first person. You're behind your third person. Everybody who says the POV of the killer doesn't know what they're talking about. It is POV behind the killer, POV to the side of the killer. It is what we're used to in video game when you're following a character like that. So I think that there's a part of that's connecting for people and going like, wow, this is an actual movie that acts this way. So I think there's an excitement about that I think is really interesting. Do I think that the performances were good? Yeah, I do. Actually, I thought there was some good work in there. And I think your buddy did a great job in crafting something that felt interesting inside of this, visage. But look, I say this to, I teach 60 actors a week. I teach acting and direction. And when I'm working with them, we constantly start the night by talking about films they've seen and what they're responding to and what they're reacting to, because I want them always to be ready for any show that calls them for an audition and that they're ready to go. So they understand the world that's happening right now in entertainment. And there are times when I'll give my critical opinion. I never really give a critical opinion in public. I do it in my private classes, and they'll learn from it. I don't ever want to diss anyone's work because I know I don't get $1 if I say something's terrible. It's just nuts. I there's no need to. There's too many critics out there. And I made Jason Goes to Hell, so I don't need to shit on anybody. The thing is that when I talk to them about like movies that I don't like, and they might love it, my response, I always get this like forlorn look in their face, like, oh, Adam doesn't like it, so there must be something wrong with me. And I'm like, no. I want everybody to love everything they see.
Same. Yes.
I don't get points if you don't like something. So I want you to love the movie. Okay. There are very few films that I would put in the category of no one should like this because there's something wrong with this movie in its ideology where I don't think anybody should ever have. I don't think this should have been done. That said, I want everybody to love what they see. And so for me, any genre movie that does well, I go, yay.
Yeah, of course.
Awesome.
Of course.
You're only helping. You're only all ships rise.
Yes. Yeah. And the fact that, it was a Canadian production, the fact that Ryan's been acting in stuff for years. He's done so many things. He's just such a good dude. And now, awesome. I see him, he's going to be appearing at Frightmare in the Fall signing, that makes me so fucking happy because the guy deserves it, One
thing I want to say about him too, there's a thing when the helmet comes off and, he's got his own little scene with the makeup and stuff, but he touches you, as the monster should, Frankenstein and the little girl, and that's, there's always that thing that there's a person in there that's misunderstood or doesn't want to be doing what they're doing. Yeah. And if you get pulled into it, it's like, that's a part of me too, isn't it? And he did that really well. And that was one of the things to me that went, that's great. They didn't just keep him in that fucking thing the whole time. They really let us, give us some insight. And it actually has something that was set up and pays off, which a lot of these things don't. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people missed it for some reason. But, to me, I go, no, it makes total sense of what, the thing and the setup, came to the conclusion, and that, to me, that's a simple little gem that, to me, helps, that all feel like it all had, beginning, middle, and end that has a resolution of sorts.
Totally.
You were talking about before just about, how even Sean Cunningham was typecast with, oh, that's the Friday the 13th guy. And I'm sure that both of you have been associated with horror even when you don't want to be. But someone who had a hard time escaping their past that you've worked with, Tommy, that is an icon. And I bring this up because my friend Doyle and I are obsessed with Batman 66. We're fucking obsessed with Adam West and everything that Adam West does. And him being in your film, Adam West being in a horror film called One Dark Night, that is the only time in which Adam West has ever been referred to the Dark Knight, despite playing Batman for 3 years and being known as Batman for decades. What was it like to work with Adam West in Paris involving the catacombs? That is such, like, when you write down the facts of all these movies, it sounds like some sick fiends Mad Libs, Catacombs, Adam West, Paris.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
Why do they not go together? But somehow they did.
They did.
Yeah. Well, let me say, I mean, I've hired cast, and I'm sure Adam's done this too. A lot of that, oh, fuck them, and that's why I cast him. When Adam was on the list, and I went, wait a minute, Adam West, and they go, yeah, but you're not going to want him. Nobody wants him. I go, wait a minute, why? Well, because he's Batman. Fuck that. Hire him. So I didn't even meet him. He came in. And the funny thing was, it's day one, he said, Tom, I was thinking of starting the character up here and then letting his voice go down. And then as I talk, it kind of goes up and down. Doesn't that sound interesting? I said, Adam, that's Batman. I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Oh, he took it all out. He did it all just straight as he did stuff. Then the motherfuckers who took over the company, Comworld, they came in and they did some looping and they decided to loop shit that didn't even need to be looped. I wasn't there, and they just let him do what he wanted to do. So it's still in the movie, the Batman approach, like it or not. Yeah. But he was really wonderful. He was very funny. I only recently learned about some of the behind the scenes with him and Robin in those days that were like, geez, I didn't realize, but it sort of made sense in the big scheme of things. Cause I mean, he was like a superstar, I mean, I saw a thing the other night on Zorro and I went, yeah, I guess I was in love with Guy Williams too, because Zorro, we were writing Z's on fucking everything when we were kids, that was a hero, and Batman was in that category. So I didn't know what was going to happen when Tim Burton was going to come along and do one. Is it going to ever be that? And, redefined it, and they redefined it and continue to redefine it to the point when the new the Batman came out, and my students were going, oh, this is great. This is, and I go, all right, for you, I'm going to go, I don't want to sit for 3 hours with a franchise and the thing. I know. I saw that thing and I was like, it's a personal film. This guy somehow stole from Seven, and he stole from openly about it. And I saw the next night again in IMAX and Dolby going, fuck, I love this. The color,
I love that film. I love that.
Same. That scene when he's, to me, that, and I know this, a lot of people fucking shit on me for this, but to me, that was one of the most realistic portrayals of a Batman that I've ever seen. In the, like, just his tech, like when he's on that catwalk and he takes that adrenaline shot to get him back up, and he's like,
but it's like, also, you feel that, man. But it's also, for me, it's really the first Batman anything that treated him as a detective.
Yes, thank you.
Detective Comics, and he was a detective, and I was like, God, I've been wanting this Batman my whole life. And as a fan of the books, I'm like, this is the detective.
Yeah, and it was the fucking guy from Twilight, which everyone shat on at the beginning.
Wait,
like,
by the way, you know what's so
seen
frustrating?
The movies that kids made? Yeah, I know.
But what's so frustrating? You know what? I mean, look, the two leads of Twilight are two of the finest actors that are working right now. And, and I know, and look, Tommy and I both have been, I'm sure several times in our careers typecast, right? And a tremendous amount of that goes to this franchise. But, when is it that people are allowed to break free of the chains of the thing that made them famous? And honestly, again, you're stealing an opportunity for an audience to get great performances, to hear these voices in a different way. Yeah. We were talking about Cronenberg earlier. Cronenberg clamored to work with Robert Pattinson.
Yeah.
These are, and Kristen is truly one of the actors of her generation. And when you look at Personal Shopper, when you look at things that she's done along the route, you're like, my God, this woman is extraordinary. And again, her performance style is specific. It's always sort of kind of this low key, more quiet, sort of natured person. But man, like she could end up being the Meryl Streep of her generation. Everybody just has to back off with the Twilight crap.
Yeah.
It's so easy to typecast.
Yeah. And why I was so happy for him with Batman was that so many haters were just ready to and I was like, nah, man, that kid's going to kill it. You're going to see, he's going to kill it. And he did. Cause I'd seen all the small studio stuff that he had done. And
Lighthouse and all the
stuff. By the way, the fact that, the guy I'm going to say, got stuck with some material that wasn't great, that's for sure. But, I thought Ben Affleck was a fucking great Batman.
Yeah.
And you know what? He also knew how to play Bruce Wayne, because anyone can put on the fucking bat suit and be Batman. How do you play Bruce Wayne? How do you play the man, the actual man, not the Batman, the man?
No, for sure.
And it's why Michael Keaton is still the gold standard for Bruce Wayne, because he got the sense of humor. He was a playboy. There was this slickness to him with women. It's like, man, you when people want to talk about the source material and they want to talk about what's important, to the creation of a character, there's so many of these guys that have done a fantastic job, and then there's Val Kilmer, whatever.
And George Clooney. By the time it gets to George Clooney, it's like, hey, freeze, I'm Batman.
Yeah, but George Clooney was just couldn't believe he got the job.
Yeah.
And you know what? And here's the thing, George Clooney actually is Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
Like in the world,
he's played Batman in other films, regardless of the mask or not, the seriousness. He just was never given the opportunity to flex. I thought Christian Bale played Batman better in American Psycho and Equilibrium.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Guys, this has really, really been a treat, honestly. I appreciate both you guys taking the time. it's been really fun just to just talk.
And nothing to do now.
Well, listen, the thing is, I got to respect you guys for your time and stuff. And I do appreciate you spending like the better part of an hour and a half with us. Starting with you, Tommy, can you tell people what's next for you, what you got going on, and where people can find more information on you?
Well, I won't go into the long version of this, or as we used to say in the old days, the FM version as opposed to the AM version. But I've got my head stuck in this Friday the 13th thing. I wrote a script called Jason Never Dies, which is 13 years after my movie, put him down there, and then he comes back, and it actually occurs during the winter. So basically, I'm taking from Carpenter's The Thing and say, what if this is happening on Thanksgiving weekend? And of course, Thanksgiving is come and gone. Eli Roth's movie, but it was so that's kind of a little bit of tongue in cheek with Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, but it's really a kind of another way to go about this that we haven't seen. Still has dark humor, still has things that, of course, I can't not do, but it's a little more edgy, a little more intense. And Jason has an agenda, a very clear agenda that echoes back to my Jason Lifts. So I can't get one fucking person in this entire town that would even look at the script, because it's like, nope, these guys are going to take this forever. And it's really not even Victor and Sean. It's their representation. Well, it's Sean in a way, because he kept paying for it. Victor didn't have to pay for it. He's got a lawyer going, make me a producer. And so he kept him going all this time. I spoke to Victor, I don't know, 3 weeks ago or something. And what's going on? You want to know anything about Friday? I know nothing. They paid me. I'm done. You won't get any information. So, and he's always kind of been that way about not wanting to get in the way of this thing because he said yes, to that fact that, 35 years later, I should get the rights. All these people, there's so many fingers in that pie, it's absurd. And, but I've written this thing. I think it could be really great. I wrote it sitting in a movie theater in my head. Okay, what do I want to see that the fans have been talking to me about, and tried to put it all into that. Then when it looked like that wasn't going to go anywhere, then I met this guy, James Sweet, who did Jason Rising, a film fan. And I said, what are you going to do next? He said, I'd love to do something about when Jason's born. And then kind of like what happens. And I went, wait a minute. Pamela was 16 years old, 1946. The war just ended. Our country was like, now we're afraid of the Russians. Now we're afraid of communism. And here's this female psychopath, sociopath, I should say, that turns into psychopath, that's got this, mentally challenged boy that's deformed. And she's going around from town to town, trying to find work as an unwed mother, no husband, and I just thought there's a really interesting psychological, thriller aspect of this. And when you see what she does to people in the first Friday, she's serious when she gets pissed off. So I, put this whole thing together, and James and I saw we had so much material. It's a series. I mean, there's no two ways about it. So 2 Halloweens ago, I'd wake up to, Brian Fuller, Crystal Lake. Then I have a backstory, and it's like, okay, so much for that. So now that's all changed again. And there's a guy, Brad Kane, who I guess just did Dairy, the Dairy series, who's now, taking the gauntlet and going to run with it. So I'm trying to see if I can just say, are you doing any of this whatsoever? So either I'm free to do it, or, if there's any, if you need a janitor, I could probably do craft service. No, but it's very hard, because that's now become this, Sean Cunningham was saying, no, New Line and Warner Brothers, they own the title, nothing I can do. And these, Victor's, nothing I can do. And I don't like the inmates have taken over the asylum, and all they want is Money. And it doesn't want Adam's done or anybody else. It's like, no, this is what we want. And I don't know what
getting this thing together. Supposedly getting this thing together was a fucking like a feat, man. getting this all in one box.
Well, if you're getting the New Line stuff and the Paramount stuff in one box set, that is tricky. Yeah.
Well, by the way,
at one point said, I have the script and stuff. He goes, no, I don't want to hear anything about Friday the 13th. We don't want to get into it. I said, but you still own all these other ones. Yeah, but that's, so that we make money when we, let people, watch them or we license them or whatever. Yeah. So it's a very weird situation, but there's this stupid side of me that feels like I've been seeing and talking to so many fans for so many years. I feel like I owe them another movie if I get a chance to do it. And I don't know, maybe I pass it on.
And I will say, I'm gonna throw it out there. Like, I know his vision for these two things. If they are going to make more material, if that ever actually fucking happens, they should get Tommy on the phone immediately. Yeah. So I'm fully endorsing what he's trying to pull off in a big way.
But again, they have to be realistic in knowing this business is business, and business means what have you just done recently? And and if there's nothing there, and I spent 10 years doing teaching at Chapman University, which was great fun, but I'm not a teacher. I'm here to learn from you guys, to be honest. You're going to learn from each other because you're going to work together and you're going to find out how to do this. I'm just going to hopefully inspire you to get out of your heads and look at the past, look at the history. When you go see a movie, let's talk about what it was that you loved about it. And this, the last couple of years has been really heartbreaking because there's just kind of a apathy about that wasn't there 10 years ago. Something happened during COVID that they kind of removed themselves a little bit passion-wise, and we had some great people show up. The kid who did Smile, he was a student there in my son's writing class 11 years ago. That was just such a strange series of events that got to that. But it was a huge hit, and people, he came to the school and he's like an alumni that made it, and they jumped and screamed during the movie. And I thought, well, the boy done good, no two ways about it. And I love that. I love when the next group kind of comes and they kind of refine, 100%. The business again. But we'll see how his part 2 is and what goes on after that. But I just keep wanting to find that way of going. I love what people are doing. I want to still be a part of it, but I also love when somebody does it and then they're getting their dreams, fulfilled.
100%. Yep. And Adam, what about you? What do you got?
Well, first thing that's going to be coming around from us, from Skeleton Crew, is we have just completed the documentary Hearts of Darkness, The Making of the Final Friday. It's done. It's done.
Congratulations. A few years ago, that was still,
Oh, yeah. No, It took 5 years. It's literally 5 years. And again, COVID. Wow. And people don't understand when they're like, why is it taking so long? I'm like, okay, listen. I know that you live in Florida where COVID was 2 months. Okay. I live in Los Angeles where COVID was 2.5 years.
Yeah.
2.5 years before people would let you into their homes. And I'm trying to get into people's houses to shoot them in their homes. My God. So, so the movie is done. It is so fucking good. I'm so happy. I'm so excited about what we've accomplished. And to the physical media side of the movie is about an hour and 50. The disc has another over 2 hours of footage. So it's a 4-hour package on disc. And I was like, no, we're going to make our director, Michael Felsher, who's a brilliant documentarian. He was like, no, let's make a movie. And I was like, oh, thank God. Yeah. So we made a movie that can be at festivals and is going to do all that good stuff and go to cons and all that. But much more importantly, I was like, how do we feed the genre fans who they want 4 hours? Like like myself, like we just want to be immersed in this nonsense. Yeah. So, there's like a little mini doc on Jonathan Penner, who literally got cut out of the movie. And then he got cut out of the doc and put into its own little special feature in the movie. So it is expansive. So that is finished and on its way.
When can we see that, Adam? There's a fan sitting here like drooling. When can we actually see that?
Really soon. I'm actually making a deal right now about its premiere with Alan Jones in England, and because I promised him the premiere, so we're trying to make that sort of like I'm trying to work that out. But the minute it has its premiere, then we can make, because we are right in the middle of negotiations for our streaming and physical media. So it's like, but it's all been so good. Like, it's been so exciting, and everybody's been like, the hunger for it only feeds into what you're talking about how people want stuff from this franchise. Like, they're desperate for stuff that's Friday the 13th, even adjacent. So that is we're real close. By the way, to that, I just did an approval on the Jason Goes to Hell 4K.
So this box set's going to be fucking obsolete soon.
Yeah, pretty much. Dude, and I'll tell you, this movie the movie has never looked better. I went in. By the way, they just called me to come in and do it, because they always call the director to come in
sure, of course, yeah.
Arrow calls in the director to supervise, right? So I came in to supervise.
So it's going to be an Arrow box set.
Oh yeah. Well, no. It's a single.
Okay.
It's a single.
Oh
yeah. This was shocking to me, because I said, wait a minute. Because they just did part 1. I know part 4 is happening, and then Jason Goes to Hell. And I was like, "What is that about?" Said, "It's what the fans asked for." I was like, "Oh, wow, fuck yeah, I'm in."
So it's not a box. So they're going to be individuals, not a box set. Because that box set, I can't see them being able to fucking pull that off again.
No, they are individuals. And here's what's crazy. So I said, you know what? I'm sorry. I directed the movie, but I didn't shoot the movie. Like, I had a cinematographer. I don't know why you guys always ask directors to come in solo when there are DPs on this movie, and you're asking us to like work on the color grade and the look of the movie. So Tommy's compatriot down in Chapman University, Bill Dill, who shot my movie, he came in and actually supervised with me.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, Bill's my guy.
I like our show.
The two of us sat there together and watched the movie. Literally, guys, this was last Wednesday.
Wow.
And it is so freaking beautiful. And here's one great thing about Warner Brothers owning all this stuff. They will then take that version of the movie and put it to all the streamers that run them.
Yes.
It'll be on Max. It'll be, so they will immediately change the file to the file that we just supervised.
Yes, that's the one.
And this is the unrated version, right?
It's the uncut, but they will retrograde it for the cut version as well. So both of them will get the best vision possible. By the way, no one should ever watch that cut version of the movie. Fuck that movie.
I saw the cut version today. And there's a scene in a tent with and it just goes in, and I'm like, I remember being much more disturbed.
Bro.
Yeah.
No, you saw the wrong version of that movie. That is bad. That's a bad.
Well, I've seen the uncut once to know that something was missing. I'm like, there were balls there once. What happened?
Oh yeah.
Some people. I know a lot of people that have watched the director's version, the director's cut of Exorcist 3, and with all that extra footage, and it's not but the theatrical version is so much better. Like, it's just
no. There are times you need to keep. There are times you gotta put handcuffs on the director and lead them out of the room and go, no. You fuck with the movie enough. Stop. Stop. So but again, the neutered version of Jason Goes to Hell is no bueno. But on the front,
that one's called Jason Goes to Heck.
Oh God! but on the new front, on stuff that's not Friday the 13th. I'm making a movie next year called Cry Havoc. That is a post American Civil War, a second Civil War in America, werewolf movie.
Oh,
yes,
nice.
Yes. So I'm doing that. I've got a film that I'm doing called Domestic Terrorist. We're going to be shooting in LA next year, which is sort of Taxi Driver in an Uber. And I have a movie called The Wickedness of the Butterfly, which is a passion project of mine. That is La Femme Nikita if Nikita was Stephen King's Carrie.
Wow.
Ooh, nice. Wow.
So
there's a pitch. That's a pitch. Wow.
Yeah. So those and one last one. Robert Kurtzman is directing a movie called Hunting Season for our company that Deborah and I wrote, and we're producing with my partner Brian Sexton. And that's sort of the predator version of Bigfoot, that we don't know what Bigfoot actually is, and that Bigfoot is something that's much smarter than we think. And the last one that we're working on right now is Fat Camp Massacre. And that one does for people of size what Get Out did for people of color. So that's sort of that's the lineup right now.
Cool.
Fuck, man. Well, I want to thank both of you for joining us today. It really, really meant a hell of a lot for you to spend all this time with us. It's been an absolute treat. And again, going back to what I said before, the passion that both of you still have for filmmaking and for film is infectious. And it was just a great conversation. And please, when you do have new stuff coming and it is about to be released, come back. We'd love to talk to you again. Love to have this conversation with you guys again. And thank you for all these great years of great films and this just being so rad, because it's nice when you get to talk to fellow movie freaks that just like feel it the way we feel it. It's special.
Yeah. And thank you for getting Adam and I back together, because we've been talking about it forever.
Yeah, ridiculous.
That's all Ryan, man. That's Ryan. I have to thank Ryan for that.
Well, I like to thank the pandemic for giving you guys so little things to do for a period of time where you'd give me the time of day. And shout out to Deborah Voorhees, one of my all-time crushes of all time, and a very talented filmmaker on her own right. She made a film called 13 Fanboy, and she was the third part of the Friday the 13th trilogy of interviews we did during the pandemic. And 13 Fanboy, everybody, check it out. It's very cool.
My wife Deborah, who, by the way, when we finish this, I'm taking her out because it's her birthday.
Happy birthday to her! My wife's birthday is in 2 days.
Love it.
Yeah.
She's in 13 Fanboy.
Oh, cool!
Yes.
Awesome.
Oh, nice.
Yes. She is the lead detective. She gets to get her full Mariska Hargitay on in that movie. So
nice.
Yep.
And Deborah put one of my songs from the Sloths in there, so I've got at least a musical credit in that. So,
I love it. I love it.
Great.
I love how it's a family. It's a family, man. It's incredible. Everyone's connected.
This has been awesome, guys. It really has been awesome.
Thank you so much, guys.
All right.
Yeah.
Take care,
Love you, Tommy. Love you, brother.
All right. I got to tell you, man, that was one of the best that we've done here yet. A big thanks to my co-host and producer, Ryan Stick, for getting that one off the ground. He did all the legwork to get that one together, and it ended up being a really, really fun episode. I just love the fact that Tommy and Adam are both still so passionate about film, and just, the kind of guys that keep up on everything that's going on. So a big thanks to them. Thanks to all of you for joining us, and thank you for sticking with us through all these episodes. If you like this podcast, please make sure you are subscribed. Leave us comments on who you'd like to hear or see in the podcast, and drop us off your dog. We're more than happy to take care of them while you're away. Until next time, we'll see you on the Rockman Power Hour. Hey, thanks so much for watching the podcast. We really appreciate your support. And if you're enjoying the podcast, click this link right over here to watch the next episode, and click right over here and subscribe. And that way you won't miss anything.